I didn't have time for miracles, just deadlines and bills. My grad school tuition was due in 2 weeks, and my biotech engineering program at the University of Chicago wasn't exactly known for its warm generosity. My scholarship barely covered rent, and if I wanted to graduate, I needed a miracle. Fast. What I found instead was an online ad in our wolf blogs. Seeking, female wolf ages 21-30 for surrogacy. Healthy, educated, willing to relocate to Golden, Colorado. Compensation, $250,000. No contact info.no company logo. Just a promise of life-changing money and a suspiciously vague set of requirements. Most female wolves I knew were pack-bound and mated by 20. But me. I was a rogue. I went rogue years ago when my delusional idiotic cousin, Malcolm, became alpha of my former pack. The Red Claw pack. He only became alpha because his dad was the previous alpha. Malcolm was spoiled, untrained, weak, and an imbecile. No pack, no mate, no obligations. Just me and my inner wolf, Penn, who was 50% muscle and 100% attitude. It's a trap, Penn grumbled in my head, low and suspicious. Probably, I muttered back. But it's a well-paid one. I filled out the online form, sent it in, and expected nothing. 2 days later, I got a reply. You've been selected. Travel details included. Arrive at Golden, Colorado within 2 weeks. Please tie up any loose ends that may interfere with this process. No interview.no call. Not even a creepy voice message. I stared at the email message. No questions? Not even a "do you shed in the house?" Penn growled. Too easy. Too broke, I replied. After leaving the Denver airport, a black Escalade rolled up looking like I'd been recruited by the supernatural men in black. The driver didn't say a word, just popped my luggage in the back. I climbed in with a granola bar and a prayer. The drive was long and silent. Mountains rose like the spines of some ancient beast as we drove through Denver and quaint towns in Colorado. By the time we pulled into Golden, I was convinced I'd either made the best or worst decision of my life. The estate we stopped at looked like someone mashed up a billionaire's tech fortress with a medieval castle. Think stone walls, high glass windows, and a whole lot of keep-out energy. As I stepped out, I caught a whiff of something that made Penn's ears perk. Wolves, she said low and sharp. Great, I muttered. Maybe they can help pay rent. The front door opened before I could knock. Out stepped a woman who looked like she ironed her emotions flat every morning. Steel gray skirt suit, lips like a sealed envelope. You're Bailey Monroe, she said. Not a question. That's what my ID says. And you are? Dr. Harlow, your medical liaison. Do I get a welcome drink, or just a thermometer and a strip to pee on? She didn't flinch. Follow me. And just like that, I was swept into a world of white halls, cold exams, and surveillance cameras disguised as feng shui. They tested everything: blood, hormones, DNA. Tell them to buy me dinner first, Penn grumbled. Dr. Harlow jumped in with her clinical spiel. But a surrogate? Unmated, rogue. Genetically compatible? That was the loophole. So I'm one with the lucky uterus? I asked. Yes, Dr. Harlow confirmed, like I'd volunteered for a science fair project. I thought I was the only one crazy or desperate, enough to answer a sketchy online ad offering big bucks to carry a stranger's werewolf baby. Turns out, I had competition. Her name was Rebecca. Or, as I came to call her in my head, Princess Passive-Aggressive. She arrived a week after me, wearing a cream cashmere turtleneck, perfectly pressed slacks, and an expression like the entire world had already failed her. I met her in the medical wing waiting room, where I was sipping herbal tea and minding my business. She sat 2 chairs away and immediately crossed her legs like I'd offended her airspace. Are you here for the surrogacy program? She asked, voice dipped in artificial politeness. I sipped my tea. Nope. I'm here for the free Wi-Fi and invasive blood draws. You. Her lips pressed together. I assumed this process would be more selective. Oh, it was, I said sweetly. You must have just squeaked in. Penn cackled in my head. Rebecca didn't. Dr. Harlow walked in before either of us could escalate further. Bailey. Rebecca. You'll be completing your evaluations together today. Rebecca arched an eyebrow. Is that necessary? Dr. Harlow stared at her with the enthusiasm of a DMV clerk. It's protocol. That's when Grant walked in, Xavier's beta. He was all golden skin and effortlessly chill demeanor that made you want to spill your deepest secrets over coffee. He gave us both a once-over and smiled. Ladies, he said, voice warm. Ready to be poked and prodded in the name of supernatural science? Always, I said, standing. Rebecca just looked mildly offended. I assumed there would be more privacy in a process this delicate. Grant chuckled. We're not asking you to arm wrestle. Just a few rounds of scans and compatibility tests. We followed him through a maze of sleek hallways, and every step seemed to amplify Rebecca's disdain. I was told the Alpha values tradition, she muttered as we passed a high-tech lab. He values results, I muttered back. You'll get used to disappointment. Rebecca finally turned to me, eyes sharp. And what exactly qualifies you for this? Oh, you know, I said, smiling. Unattached. Healthy. Great bone structure. Plus, my wolf likes long walks in the moonlight and doesn't need constant validation. Dr. Harlow cleared her throat sharply, clearly regretting every career choice that led her here. Let's begin. The tests dragged on for hours. Rebecca complained about the temperature, the lighting, the scent of antiseptic. I, on the other hand, napped through half of it. When we were finally released back to our quarters, I caught Rebecca glancing at me like she was still trying to solve some equation she didn't like the answer to. Good luck, she said, tone brittle. You too, I replied. May the best uterus win. Penn laughed so hard I nearly choked on my tea. Grant handed me a tablet. Here is an NDA. We require all candidates to sign. No discussion of this agreement or what matters conducted are to be discussed with anyone outside of these walls. Understood. I scanned the document and took a deep sigh. Are you guys going to do any mad scientist medical experiments on me? I asked half-jokingly. Neither Dr. Harlow or Grant said anything. They both just looked at me. That didn't make me feel any better. Are we really doing this? Penn asked. Those bills aren't going to pay themselves. Plus I want to graduate in this lifetime. So we have no choice. Everything went through Dr. Harlow and Grant. But something told me Rebecca wasn't here just for the paycheck. She moved like a woman who expected a crown, not a contract. Penn growled. Keep your eye on her, she warned. She doesn't just want to carry the air. She wants to keep it. And just like that, I realized I wasn't the only one with something to prove. I didn't see Rebecca again for 2 days, and honestly, it was bliss. No passive-aggressive sighs. No judgmental glances. No unsolicited skincare advice cloaked in condescension. Then she waltzed into the common dining hall, like she owned the mountain. She spotted me at the table, gave a quick once-over, then glided over, heels clicking like a countdown. I suppose we'll know soon who's chosen, she said, sitting across from me with a dainty fork and a smug smile. I arched an eyebrow. For what? The final rose. She chuckled, all teeth. To be Luna. I blinked. Luna. Pretty sure that's not part of the job description. Rebecca twirled a piece of melon on her fork like it offended her. Not for you, maybe. But I don't believe the Alpha would choose someone. Temporary. He needs a Luna. A mother for his child. A legacy. Penn let out a low growl. Oh, she's serious, I muttered. I am, Rebecca said, misinterpreting. I've studied Pac law. I come from a long line of betas. I was trained in etiquette, diplomacy, and combat. My lineage is pure. My shift is pristine. I'm the obvious choice. You make it sound like you're applying to be Queen of England. If the crown fits, she said smoothly. I leaned forward, resting my chin on my palm. Let me guess. You think sleeping with the Alpha is step 1 in Operation Luna. She didn't even flinch. Unlike some, I don't need to manipulate my way into his bed. I'll be chosen because I'm worthy. And when that happens, I'll raise the child as my own. With the Alpha. As it should be. My smile tightened. Bold of you to assume either of us gets to choose. She leaned in. It won't be you. Xavier may tolerate sarcasm and street smarts for a fling, but he needs a Luna with poise. With pedigree. Someone who understands what it means to lead beside him. I stood calm but deadly. If you're so confident, Princess Beta, then maybe you should focus on impressing the council instead of picking fights in the cafeteria. Rebecca smirked. I don't have to pick fights. I win them. I walked away before Penn could convince me to shift and bite a chunk out of her Chanel flats. As I left, I saw Grant in the hallway, leaning against the wall with an expression like he'd heard every word. Is it just me, he asked, or did that feel like a prelude to war? I gave him a dry look. Oh, Grant, that was war. The air between me and Rebecca was thick enough to cut with a silver blade. Ever since our little cafeteria chat, she'd doubled down on her self-appointed campaign for Luna, prancing around the estate like she already had the title sewn into her monogrammed bathrobe. She made a habit of running into me. In the halls. In the training yard. In the damn greenhouse. Oh, I didn't see you there, she said one morning, sauntering past me as I bent over to tie my shoe. I'm in fluorescent sneakers, I muttered. I'm not exactly stealth mode. Must be nice, she said, tossing her hair. Not having to worry about appearances. I suppose for some, the role is less about presentation and more about temporary utility. Pen bristled inside me. My wolf was not subtle when annoyed. I had to push her down again and school my face into something neutral. I couldn't afford to reveal what I really was. Not yet. Not when half these people already looked at me like I was the substitute teacher of surrogacy. Let Rebecca think I was just some rogue with a smart mouth and decent ovaries. Let her underestimate me. The next time she cornered me, it was in the training yard. I'd gone there early to burn off some nerves and keep Pen from clawing out of my skin. There's only so much yoga a wolf can tolerate. I was finishing a set of pull-ups when she strutted in wearing sleek black leggings and a sports bra that screamed designer combat Barbie. Her hair was perfect. Her eyeliner was perfect. Her attitude, predictable. Didn't think I'd find you here, she said, stretching like she was on a fitness infomercial. I dropped from the bar. What? Because I don't wear lipstick to work out. Because I assumed you weren't the type to train. Let alone shift. I mean, you are a rogue, aren't you? No one to spar with. No discipline. I grabbed a towel, wiping sweat from my neck. Funny. I assumed you were the type who lets other people fight her battles. Like a proper beta princess. That hit. Her nostrils flared slightly, and I caught the glint of a snarl trying to break through. You're out of your depth here, Bailey, she said, dropping the phone-ice voice. This isn't some back-alley brawl. This is pack politics. Legacy. Bloodlines. You have no idea what it means to be Luna. No, I said, stepping closer, lowering my voice. But I know what it means to survive. I know what it means to be the only one looking out for yourself. No pack. No safety net. Just grit. And guess what? That kind of fire doesn't come from etiquette classes. Pen pressed against the inside of my chest, demanding release. My sense spiked slightly, just enough to make Rebecca pause. Her pupils narrowed. What? Are you? She asked, suspicious now. Just a rogue, I said lightly, forcing my breathing to slow. But even rogues bite back. Grant appeared out of nowhere, as if summoned by tension alone. Ladies, he said, smiling too wide. Thought this was a training ground, not a prelude to WWE. Rebecca stepped back and straightened like a debutante caught slapping her chauffeur. Just stretching. Grant raised an eyebrow but said nothing. His gaze lingered on me for half a second longer than it should have. Did he suspect something? As Rebecca flounced off, I exhaled slowly. Pen was simmering. She wants to draw blood, Pen said. I know, I murmured. But she won't get mine. Later that night, I caught her speaking in hushed tones with Dr. Harlow. They didn't see me, not at first. I stayed in the shadows, tuning into her smug nasal voice. Certainly more suited to Luna duties. She's rough around the edges, Harlow. Hardly dignified. Imagine what the council would say if he picked her. Xavier hasn't made any decisions, Harlow replied, clipped. He won't need to. Once I'm pregnant, the choice will be obvious. I'm the better fit. I stepped forward then, just enough for the floorboards to creak. Rebecca turned, eyes wide for a fraction of a second before her smirk snapped back into place. Eavesdropping is rude, she said. Good thing I wasn't hiding, I replied. I just assumed you'd want an audience for your audition. She crossed her arms. Mark my words, Bailey. You're just a placeholder. A distraction. I'm what this pack needs. I looked her dead in the eye, letting just a sliver of Pen's power trickle into my gaze. Not enough to shift, just enough to make her feel it. You keep telling yourself that, I said. But don't mistake ambition for strength. You might know how to play politics, Rebecca. But I am the storm you keep pretending isn't coming. Then I walked away, heart pounding. Pen purred. She's not ready for us. No, I whispered. She's not. 3 days passed, and I hadn't seen Rebecca except from a blissful distance. I figured she was off somewhere strategizing her coronation as Luna, or maybe learning how to walk in slow motion down marble hallways. Either way, I wasn't complaining. That morning, Dr. Harlow summoned us both to the observation lounge, which was a fancy way of saying cold room with leather chairs and tension. I showed up in my usual joggers and hoodie. Rebecca arrived in what looked like a designer trench coat and judgmental perfume. Dr. Harlow stood by the wall-length screen, tablet in hand, as clinical as ever. We've concluded the evaluations, she said without ceremony. Embryo transfer will commence in 3 days. Rebecca's eyebrows lifted like she'd just been told she won the Powerball. So, he chose me. Dr. Harlow didn't even blink. No, the alpha has not made a selection. I arched an eyebrow. So, we're both getting embryos. Yes. Rebecca blinked. Once, twice, her voice went from sugar to salt in half a second. That wasn't the plan. I was told there would be one surrogate. One Luna. Correction, Harlow said flatly. You were told there would be a surrogate. The Luna discussion is irrelevant. Rebecca turned to Grant, who had been silently watching from the far wall, arms crossed. When do we meet the alpha? She asked, too casual to be innocent. Grant pushed off the wall and walked forward, all beta calm and unbothered. You don't. That hit Rebecca like a slap made of disappointment and lost ambition. Excuse me. You're not here to date him, Grant said, tone clipped but polite. This isn't The Bachelor. You're here to carry a child. The alpha's child. That's the job. But the Luna. There is no Luna, he said, cutting her off. Not now. Not part of this. Not you. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing out loud. Rebecca looked like someone just burned her bridal planner. But surely he'll want to meet the mother of his heir, she said, voice tight. He doesn't, Grant replied. This was his condition. An heir without entanglement. Rebecca sat back in her chair, as if the world had tilted. Her lips parted, then closed. She looked at Dr. Harlow, then at me, and I saw it, the flicker of fear. For the first time, the crown she imagined slipped just a little. She wasn't going to be Luna. She wasn't going to meet the alpha. She was just a vessel, just like me. Except I already knew that. I didn't flinch that I didn't ask for more. I gave Grant a nod. Guess we better stock up on prenatal vitamins. Rebecca didn't respond. She just sat there, stunned, as the room slowly emptied around her. Pen stirred in my chest, smug. Now she knows. Yeah, I whispered back. Now she does. We were moved to the alpha's main house, since we were both selected as surrogates. The next morning, I found myself seated in the alpha's main house kitchen. It was surprisingly normal. No gold-plated forks or crystal chandeliers, just sleek granite, warm wood cabinets, and the faint smell of maple syrup. Grant sat at the end of the long island counter, coffee in hand, scrolling through a tablet. I was nursing a bowl of oatmeal and ignoring Rebecca, who had made herself a protein smoothie and, predictably, was already making the atmosphere toxic. It's just a fact, she said, smiling innocently as she sipped her drink. Pure-blooded wolves are stronger. More stable. The hybrids, well, they're always so volatile. It's biological. You can't argue with nature. I raised an eyebrow but kept eating. Pen growled in my mind, low and unimpressed. Grant didn't look up, but his fingers paused on the tablet. I saw the twitch in his jaw before he swallowed it. Rebecca kept going. I mean, no offense to the mixed bloods out there, but when you want to pass on a strong legacy, purity matters. That's what the Elder Council always emphasized in my pack. You done? I asked, setting down my spoon. She blinked, like she genuinely didn't know what she'd said wrong. Excuse me? Just wondering if you're finished spewing eugenics over breakfast. Grant stood slowly. Ladies. He gave Rebecca a long, unreadable look. I'll see you both later. He walked out, calm as ever, but there was something tight in the way he moved. Something that didn't quite sit right. That afternoon, I was reading in the sitting room when Rebecca was summoned by Dr. Harlow. Her heels clicked furiously on the marble floor as she stormed toward the office. 10 minutes later, I heard raised voices. Then silence. She emerged moments later, pale and furious. This is outrageous, she snapped. You can't just eliminate me. Dr. Harlow followed, her face an impassive wall of authority. You've been dismissed from the surrogacy program, effective immediately. Your transportation is being arranged. Rebecca whirled around. Why? I've passed every test. I'm the best genetic candidate. Grant's voice came from behind her. Because the alpha doesn't want a child raised by a bigot. Rebecca spun around, her mouth half open. Grant stepped into the hallway, arms folded. I'm a hybrid, he said simply. Silence. You insulted every part of me and didn't even know it, he continued. And Xavier? He doesn't want that energy near his child. Not even in the womb. Rebecca looked like she'd been slapped. That's ridiculous. It's final, Dr. Harlow said, her tone ending all further protest. Rebecca turned to me, glaring like I'd somehow orchestrated her downfall. I shrugged. Maybe next time, try less superiority complex and more basic human decency. Pen howled with laughter as Rebecca stormed off. Grant caught my eye. There was a flicker of gratitude there. Respect. Thanks for not engaging this morning, he said. I nodded. Wouldn't have been worth the jail time. He cracked a smile. And just like that, the air felt a little lighter. One surrogate down. One to go. Me. That night, a storm rolled over the mountain like a beast shaking off its leash. Thunder cracked loud enough to rattle the windows, and lightning painted jagged scars across the sky. I couldn't sleep. Too much adrenaline was still buzzing through my system from the showdown earlier, and the storm didn't help. Pen wasn't thrilled either. She paced in the back of my mind, ears perked, restless. "You could have let me bite her," she muttered. "Tempting," I whispered back, slipping out of bed. "But messy. And probably frowned upon by HR." I padded barefoot down the dark hallway, hoodie pulled over my head. The house creaked and groaned like it was alive. I knew the kitchen had snacks. Grant had stashed away a whole shelf of chocolate-covered almonds. I deserved at least a handful after surviving Rebecca and her racist smoothie. The kitchen was dark, but not pitch black. The moonlight filtered in through the tall windows, flickering with the lightning flashes. I opened the pantry and reached for a snack bag. "You're up late. Planning a heist or just hungry?" I yelped. The almonds flew from my hands, skidding across the marble floor like they were fleeing the scene. I spun around, heart hammering. There, sitting at the kitchen island like a shadow with a pulse, was him. Xavier, the alpha. He sat in the dark, casual, arms folded on the countertop, like this was just his usual 3 a.m. hangout spot. His voice had been smooth and dry, laced with quiet amusement. But his eyes, that's what caught me. They glowed, silver, not just reflecting light, glowing. Soft and luminous, cutting through the darkness with unblinking calm. "Holy hell," I breathed. "Do you try to be terrifying, or is that just a hobby?" His lips twitched, almost a smile. "I live here. You're the one creeping around like a snack bandit." I bent down, picking up the scattered almonds. "You couldn't have turned on a light or something. Maybe coughed? Slammed a cupboard?" "Didn't want to ruin the ambience," he said. I grabbed a handful of almonds and poured them into a bowl, trying to ignore how tall and still and inhumanly graceful he was. Even sitting, he looked like something out of a dark fairy tale, all lean muscle and ancient menace dressed in black. This was the man I was supposed to never meet. The man behind the air contract. The man who didn't want love, or a Luna, or even a conversation. Just biology. And yet, here he was. "So," I said, sliding into the stool across from him. "Do you always skulk in the shadows, or is this a one-night-only performance?" His mouth curved slightly. "I like quiet. Storms make people honest." I popped an almond into my mouth. "Honest, huh? Are you expecting a therapy session?" He tilted his head, those glowing eyes never leaving mine. "You don't scare easily." I shrugged. "I've seen scarier things than a guy with LED eyeballs." He chuckled. "It was low and rough, and did strange things to my insides." "Good," he said. "You'll need that spine." I wasn't sure what that meant. But I didn't ask, not yet. Instead, we sat in silence as the storm raged outside. Just me, a bowl of almonds, and the alpha who didn't want to care. But something told me. He was starting to. I reached across the island for another almond. His hand moved at the same time, and our fingers brushed, just the lightest contact. It was enough. It hit like a jolt of electricity shot straight into my core. My breath caught and I froze. Pen howled inside me, the sound full of shock and joy. "Mate!" Her voice rang through me like a bell. "He's our mate." "No." I whispered so quietly I didn't realize I'd said it aloud. Xavier didn't move. But I could feel his stillness sharpen, the quiet between us becoming loaded. I didn't dare look up. "This is fate, Bailey. Don't fight it," Pen pleaded. "He's strong. He's everything. You felt it. He's ours." "No, he's not," I snapped in my mind. "He's the alpha of a pack I don't belong to. I came here to carry a baby and get out. That's it. But he's your mate. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. I make my own path. Not the moon goddess. Not some primal instinct. Me." Pen whimpered, stunned by my resistance. "I'm not giving up my freedom for a man with glowing eyes and a pedigree," I said bitterly. "I'll finish the job, take the money, and leave. That's the deal. No strings." I could feel her sorrow bleeding into my own gut. "You'll regret this. Better to regret nothing." I pushed back from the stool abruptly. Xavier's gaze followed me, but he didn't say a word. He didn't need to. I left the bowl of almonds on the island and walked out without another glance. By the time I reached my bedroom, my hands were trembling. I slammed the door shut and leaned against it, trying to steady my breath. Pen was silent. The storm outside had finally met its match, the one inside me. "Xavier's POV," she said yes. That simple confirmation had hit me harder than any council decree or battlefield blow. She said yes.to me. To this. And now, as I stood in the kitchen of the main house, sending the Omega kitchen staff off early with a firm but polite dismissal, I felt something I rarely did: nerves. I didn't want this dinner to feel like a deal. I wanted it to feel like a beginning. The moment she entered the kitchen wearing those soft black tank top-style dress that clung just a little too well, I knew staying focused tonight would be a fucking challenge. She has the audacity to not wear a bra. Her nipples were protruding through the fabric, like they were daring me to nibble on them. I wondered if she was wearing any panties underneath that dress. How easy it would be for me to slide my fingers in between her thighs. Damned, I swear she did this intentionally. Didn't know alpha etiquette included dinners now, Bailey said, eyeing the clean counter and soft lighting with arched brows. I smirked. Only for special guests. You mean the ones getting knocked up? She asked, deadpan. Something like that, I said, pulling out the bar stool at the island. Sit. Let me feed you before you fuck up the night with your sarcasm. She plopped down dramatically. I make no promises, but I will accept bribes in the form of carbs. I moved to the stove, already feeling the heat of her eyes on my back. The T-bone was already seasoned, resting just right. I seared it with precision, garlic butter bubbling in the pan beside it. The mashed potatoes were whipped smooth, creamy with roasted garlic folded in. The broccolini was already blanched and just needed a quick toss in butter and lemon zest. You really know your way around a kitchen, she said, her voice lower now, curious. My mother insisted all her sons learn to cook. Said no alpha should be helpless without a woman to feed him. She laughed softly. Your mom sounds like she has her priorities straight. Feed the wolves, save the pack. I glanced at her from the side, and the way the lights played off her caramel skin, the way her lips curled when she grinned, I had to look away fast. Then I smelled it, her arousal. Like honey and heat. Wild and sweet, it slammed into my senses like a wrecking ball. Asher growled in satisfaction, pacing behind my ribcage. She wants us. Focus, I told myself, but it was hard, pun intended, as I stirred the sauce and felt myself swell inside my pants. Every movement she made sent another wave of scent through the room. And she knew it. I could see it in the amused smirk dancing across her lips. You okay over there? She asked, resting her chin on her hand. You look like you're either extremely focused or trying not to spontaneously combust. I'm fine. Mom, she said, sipping water. If you burst into flames mid-steak, I get your wine collection. When everything was plated, steak perfectly charred, mashed potatoes piped onto the plate with a flourish, broccolini glistening, I set it down before her. She blinked. Damn, this looks like something from a 5-star werewolf cooking show. Only the best. Then I uncorked a bottle and poured. She tilted her head. Moscato. I raised a brow. Sweet. Citrusy. Your favorite. Her eyes narrowed. How did you know? I smiled. I pay attention. She stared at me for a moment, fork in hand, completely still. Then she looked down at the food like it was the only thing holding her to the ground. You're very confusing, she muttered, stabbing a potato with unnecessary force. And you're very tempting, I countered, voice low. Pen practically purred behind her eyes. I could feel her pressing against the edges of Bailey's self-control. Bailey paused mid-bite. Okay. No sexy voice until I've had dessert. Rules are rules. I chuckled and reached into the fridge, pulling out the creme brulee, smooth, chilled, and perfectly torched just minutes ago. Her eyes widened. You made dessert too? Of course. Can't leave a job half-finished. Tell that to every man I've ever dated, she muttered. I bit back a grin and handed her the spoon. You know this is really unfair, she said after the first bite. You can't cook like Gordon Ramsay and look like you wrestle bears on weekends. You're setting unrealistic expectations for the entire male population. I leaned on the counter, watching her closely. Then lower your expectations for everyone else. Not me. She blinked. Oh damn. That was smooth. That was dangerously smooth. Do you take classes for this? No. But I do well when I'm motivated. And what exactly is motivating you? I stared at her, letting the silence hang heavy. You. She swallowed. Hard. The playful smirk faltered, just for a second. I knew I shouldn't have worn the good bra, she muttered. Pen was practically foaming with glee in her eyes. The air between us thickened, simmered. She went back to her dessert, biting the spoon slowly this time, almost like a dare. And I was already completely undone. Bailey's POV, I stood in front of the mirror like I was going to a damn gala instead of a very confusing, possibly life-altering dinner with a man who might be my baby daddy. Not that that detail made outfit planning easier. What says I'm here for business, not pleasure, but still shows off my assets in case business becomes flexible, I muttered. Pen didn't answer. She was too busy humming what I could only describe as the mental equivalent of a striptease anthem. Eventually, I settled on a body-hugging tank top dress. Racerback. No bra. If I was going to suffer, I might as well weaponize the cleavage. The benefits of having full, bountiful breasts. Boom, I said, turning side to side. Subtle thirst trap achieved. You look like dessert. He's going to eat you alive. Pen, please. I'm trying to be mature. Then why did you shave your legs and lotion them like a goddess preparing for sacrifice? Shut up. By the time I entered the kitchen, the smell of seared meat hit me like a wall of heavenly seduction. Then I saw him. Xavier, standing at the stove like a cover model for Alpha Cuisine Weekly. Gray t-shirt clinging to his back, sleeves stretching over muscles that probably had their own zip code. Every time he flipped something in the pan, his biceps flexed like an erotic drumline. And oh, moon goddess, I was aroused. Unreasonably. Is he flipping that steak or seducing it? I whispered to myself. Look at his back. That back was built for pinning us to a tree. Pen, tell me I'm wrong. I dare you. I sat down at the island, trying to look casual as I crossed my legs and prayed my inner thigh heat didn't melt the seat. You know, I thought you were exaggerating with the cooking, I said aloud, but this feels like I've stumbled into the kitchen of a culinary demigod. Xavier glanced over his shoulder, lips twitching. Good. You're exactly on time. Hungry. Starving, I said. Though I'm not sure if it's for food or just to lick garlic butter off your forearms. Yes. That. Say that out loud. Let's make it weird. I am begging you, I told Pen. Let me be classy for just one meal. Classy is boring. Ask him to crush a garlic clove between his pecs. The longer I watched him move, the worse it got. Every stir, every knife chop, every sizzling pan flip, it was erotic in the weirdest, most Food Network meets softcore way. He's not even trying, I muttered. He's just competent. Competence is sexy. Someone write that down. He's slicing potatoes. And me. I'm sliced. I'm done. Cooked. Well done. Are you seriously drooling over mashed potatoes right now, Pen? No. I'm drooling because that man's triceps are the size of my dignity. Which is gone now, by the way. Long gone. I tried not to let my face give me away, but Xavier turned around with that smirk. That knowing look. Alphas smell everything, see everything expression that said he could tell. He definitely knew. The worst part? I kind of wanted him to. And Pen. She was already halfway down the mental hallway, stripping. Tonight's gonna be wild. Xavier's POV. By the time we were seated with full plates and our first glasses of wine, I was already on edge. Not in the angry alpha way. This woman is smiling at me like she wants to lick creme brulee off my chest way. So, Bailey said, swirling her Moscato like she was born in Napa. Let's pretend this is a normal dinner. What's your favorite movie? I blinked. You want to start with movies? Yeah. Warm-up questions before we get to the trauma. Fair enough. Gladiator. She snorted. Of course it is. Muscles, violence, betrayal, and a tortured hero with emotional issues. That's like Alpha Bingo. What about you? She took a long sip before answering. Shaun of the Dead. Wait, really? Zombies, British sarcasm, and a guy who survives the apocalypse with a cricket bat. What's not to love? I chuckled. Okay, that one surprised me. I'm a woman of layers, she said, stabbing a potato like it insulted her. We went through food preferences, music tastes, and embarrassing childhood facts. I broke my arm falling off a hay bale. She once got her head stuck in a stair railing and had to be buttered free. Okay, real question, she said after the second bottle was empty. Why don't you want a Luna? I froze for a beat. She didn't flinch, just stared at me with those sharp, unapologetic eyes. I exhaled, because I saw what it did to someone I cared about. His Luna was human. She died giving birth. He couldn't handle the loss. The pack nearly fell apart. His beta had to step in. Alpha Lawrence never recovered. Bailey's expression softened. So you figured if you didn't get attached, you wouldn't get destroyed. Something like that. I didn't want a mate that didn't want a Luna. According to pack law, the alpha had to provide an heir to secure the bloodline or take a mate. The Elder Council had given him an ultimatum and 6 months to decide. So I opted for a child, not a bond. Legacy without entanglement It was cold. It was calculated. Love complicates things, I said flatly. I've seen too many alphas fail because they were distracted. Torn between heart and duty. I don't have room for that. I need to lead with a clear mind. She snorted. You really know how to complicate a fake womb-for-hire situation, don't you? Then tilted her head. And now? I looked at her. Really looked. You changed everything, I said quietly. Because you're an alpha and my fated mate. She blinked. I knew one of you was. You or Rebecca. I wasn't sure until the kitchen. That spark, it confirmed everything. You are my fated mate. She glanced away, biting her lip. Yeah, I felt it too. Her voice was soft, uncertain. Then she downed the rest of her glass. Okay, my turn, I said. How'd you end up rogue? Bailey groaned. Oh God. My idiot cousin Malcolm. He inherited the alpha position because of his dad. Malcolm is spoiled and stupid. He indulges on moonshine and expired protein powder. Naturally, he is a poor leader. But you know pack law is brutal like that. So I opted to leave instead of allowing him to be my alpha. The day he came into power, I packed up my shit and left. Thankfully, I had already received my acceptance letter to the University of Chicago. Did he try to stop you from leaving? No, because he knew I would kick his ass. Since the time we were kids, I was always stronger than him. I used to be able to pin him in less than 3 minutes. So guessing he didn't want to look like a chump in front of the pack, he let me go. I figured I'd rather be broke in Chicago than endure his idiocy in Atlanta. I laughed. You're full of surprises. And sarcasm. Don't forget that. We kept talking about wolves and packs, about what it felt like to shift, about human things too. Bad dorm food, coffee addictions, the beauty of silence at 3 a.m. By the time we finished the 6th bottle of wine, we were both leaning across the island, grinning like teenagers. I can't feel my face, she said. Same, I replied. Also, I think you're hot. But like annoyingly hot. Like ruin your life hot. My smile widened. Good to know. Also, she slurred slightly, I may want to do unnatural things to your lips. Asher perked up. She is ready. Take her. I ignored him, barely. Bailey reached for her glass, missed, and ended up with her hand on mine. The spark that we both froze. Her pupils dilated. Okay, that was unfair, she whispered. Do you always feel like lightning or is this just a me thing? It's a mate thing. She swallowed, hard. Pen was howling in her mind. Asher was rumbling in mine. The room was too warm, too still. Bailey's POV by the time Xavier stood from his seat and offered me his hand. I should have known the night was far from over. There was a glint in his eye, a promise of something more than just a casual encounter. He didn't say anything, he just looked at me, taking in every detail as if committing it to memory. The curves of my face, the scent of my skin, the wine-induced flush in my cheeks, he absorbed it all. And then, with a gentle but firm grip, he walked me to my room like a gentleman. Like he wasn't about to turn my world upside down. When we reached the door, I turned, ready to make a sarcastic quip about how this was the most expensive foreplay in history. But before I could get the words out, he kissed me. Hard. Deep. No hesitation. No teasing. Just pure, unadulterated fire. I think I dropped something. Maybe it was my soul. I don't even know. All I remember was gripping the front of his shirt as the world spun, and then somehow we were inside. Clothes, vanished. Sanity, also gone. I stood in the moonlight, my dress puddled at my feet. Xavier's eyes devoured me, hungry and reverent. He looked at my body like I was the last woman on earth, and the first all at once. You've been tormenting me all night, he said, his voice husky, his gaze locked on my breasts. Well, I panted, you shouldn't have cooked like a sex god. He growled low and stepped in close, his hands sliding down the curve of my hips like he was memorizing them. I'm not going to be gentle with you, he warned. Yeah, no kidding, I muttered. Your biceps have been screaming dominance since the mashed potatoes. Then he pulled off his shirt, and my mouth went dry. Every inch of him was sculpted to perfection. And then, his pants. Sweet baby, God. Penn let out a high-pitched internal gasp that sounded like a wolf at a Chippendales show. Is that a weapon? Should we sign a waiver? I whispered to no one. Why does it look like it has a gravitational pull? Penn was practically doing cartwheels in my brain. That is not a man. That is a challenge. And I, for one, accept. Penn, be serious. We might actually die. And what a glorious death it will be. On the sword. Quite literally. We go out like warriors. I don't even know if I have the core strength for this. You are an alpha. I am an alpha. Our pelvic floor is legendary. We trained for this. We were born for this. I was born for snacks and Netflix. Tonight you're born for him. Then he stepped toward me fully, his hands hot against my waist, his lips trailing fire across my neck, down my collarbone. Penn was practically doing cartwheels in my brain. Ask him if we can clone him. We could retire early. Start a new business. Xavier and Sensations. I'm not asking him that. Fine. But if he turns out to be good with power tools too, I'm proposing marriage. His hands slid down my thighs, lifting me like I weighed nothing. I wrapped my legs around him purely on instinct. Your body is, he murmured, pausing like he couldn't find a word filthy enough. Incredible. You should see it under fluorescent lighting. Very different experience. He laughed deep and low, and it vibrated right through me. Damn, I love your mouth. It's my best feature. That and my student loan debt. He carried me to the bed like I was some mythical prize, placing me down carefully, reverently, before his mouth found mine again. Our limbs tangled, our breathing chaotic. Then he lined himself up, and I saw it again. Oh wow. Okay. Still intimidating. It's fine, Penn whispered. It's just a lot of man. Like a clear-your-schedule amount of man. Don't break eye contact, I muttered to myself. Don't show fear. He can smell it. I'm not afraid. Liar. I saw your soul leave your body for a second. He paused, looking at me, checking in, making sure I was ready. And for all the jokes, all the sarcasm, I was... Xavier, I said, locking eyes with him. You are clearly not built for the faint of heart. And you, Bailey, he said, voice like a velvet growl, are clearly built to break me. Penn howled in approval. Let the breaking commence. I pushed him gently onto his back and straddled him, my eyes never leaving his. I could feel him, hard and ready beneath me. Leaning down, I kissed him deeply, our tongues dancing together in a rhythm that was both familiar and new. I could taste the wine we'd shared, the remnants of our dinner, and something else, something raw and primal that was purely Xavier. I trailed kisses down his chest, his abs, his hips, feeling his body tremble beneath my touch. When I took him in my mouth, he let out a low groan, his hips bucking slightly. I looked up at him, a smirk playing on my lips. Your mouth is good for more than just sarcasm, isn't it? He said, his voice strained. I didn't respond, instead choosing to show him just how good my mouth could be. I took him in, inch by inch, my tongue swirling around him, my hands gripping his thighs for leverage. He tasted salty and sweet, a heady combination that made my head spin. His hands found their way into my hair, guiding me, urging me on. I could feel his body tensing, his breaths coming in short gasps. Bailey, he warned, his voice a low growl. But I didn't stop, didn't slow down. I wanted to taste him, to feel him lose control. And when he did, it was with a roar that shook the very foundations of the room. I swallowed, savoring the taste of him, the feel of his body shuddering beneath me. But Xavier was not one to be outdone. Before I could even catch my breath, he had me on my back, his body hovering over mine. He trailed kisses down my neck, my collarbone, my breasts, his hands exploring every inch of me. When he finally reached the apex of my thighs, he looked up at me, a wicked grin on his face. Your turn, he said, his voice a low rumble. And then he set to work, his tongue and fingers working in tandem to drive me wild. I could feel the pressure building, my body tensing, my breaths coming in short gasps. Xavier. I cried out, my hands gripping the sheets beneath me. Don't stop, I begged. And he didn't. He kept going, his pace unrelenting, his touch sure and confident. And when I finally came, it was with such a force. My body convulsed, my back arching off the bed, as wave after wave of pleasure crashed over me. I could feel myself gushing, my liquid nectar coating his fingers, his chin. It was primal, it was raw, and it was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. But we were far from done. Xavier positioned himself at my entrance, his eyes locked on mine. But we were far from done. Xavier positioned himself at my entrance, his eyes locked on mine. Ready for more? He asked, a smirk playing on his lips. I nodded, my body already aching for him. He entered me slowly, inch by inch, filling me completely. I could feel every vein, every ridge, every inch of him as he moved inside me. It was intense, it was overwhelming, and it was everything I never knew I wanted. You feel so good, I moaned, my eyes rolling back slightly. Like a tight, wet glove, Penn commented, ever the poet. Shut up, Penn. I thought, but I couldn't help the smile that played on my lips. Xavier noticed and grinned, knowing he was affecting me deeply. You like that, don't you? He said, his voice a low growl. You like feeling me stretch you to your fullest capacity. I nodded, unable to form words as he began to move, his hips thrusting against mine, his body slapping against my own. The room filled with the sounds of our pleasure, raw and uninhibited. I could feel every inch of him, hard and insistent, driving me to the edge of sanity. More, I begged, my nails digging into his back. Give me more. He obliged, his pace quickening, his grip tightening. The room spun, my vision blurred, and all I could focus on was the sensation of him, the heat of him, the sheer overwhelming presence of him. Xavier. I cried out, my body convulsing as waves of pleasure crashed over me. He followed soon after, his own release tearing through him with a primal roar. We collapsed together, our bodies entwined, our hearts pounding in sync. The aftermath was a haze of satisfaction and exhaustion. I lay there, my chest heaving, my mind a blank slate. Xavier's arm was heavy around my waist, his breath hot against my neck. That, he murmured, his voice a low rumble, was worth every second of torment. I managed a weak laugh, my body still trembling with aftershocks. You're not so bad yourself, I replied, my words slurring slightly. We stayed like that for what felt like hours, our bodies cooling, our breaths returning to normal. But our night was far from over. As I started to doze off, I felt Xavier's hands on my body again, stirring me back to life. Again? I asked, a smile playing on my lips. I can't get enough of you, he said, his voice husky with desire. And so we started again, our bodies moving together in a dance as old as time itself. This time he took me from behind, his hands gripping my hips as he drove into me with a force that left me breathless. Yes, I hissed, pushing back against him, meeting his thrusts with my own. Harder, I begged, and he complied, his body slapping against mine with a force that shook the bed. You feel so good, he groaned, his voice strained with effort. So tight, so wet. I could feel another orgasm building, my body tensing as I pushed back against him, urging him on. Come with me, I begged, my voice a desperate plea. He did, his body tensing as he found his release, triggering my own. We collapsed onto the bed, our bodies slick with sweat, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. That was... I started, but I couldn't find the words. Incredible, Xavier finished for me, a satisfied smile on his face. We lay there, our bodies entwined, our hearts slowing to a normal rhythm. But I knew it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As I drifted off to sleep, I could feel Xavier's hands on my body again, ready for another round. And I was more than ready to oblige. Grant's POV. When I walked into Xavier's office the next morning, I wasn't expecting to find the big bad alpha of Silver Ridge Pack leaning back in his chair like a love-struck teenager. He was smiling, like he hadn't traumatized half the estate with the symphony of moans echoing through the hallways all night. I paused, blinked, and slowly shut the door behind me. He didn't even notice. Just kept staring out the window like it owed him a romantic novel cover. So, I said, crossing my arms, is she still alive or should I alert the authorities? Xavier blinked, slowly turning to face me. What? Bailey, I said. You know, the woman you were loudly and enthusiastically appreciating all night. The woman who, based on sound alone, I now know has stamina that would put a triathlete to shame. He had the nerve to play dumb. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I gave him a flat look. Don't you dare. The Omega Kitchen staff had to leave early. Again. You know how hard it is to bake scones while someone's howling the name of their fated mate like a damn war cry? Xavier shrugged, that smug grin spreading wider across his face. She was expressive. Expressive? My man, she summoned rain clouds. I think the trees outside are pregnant now. We may have to burn some sage. He leaned back again, completely unfazed. I regret nothing. Of course you don't. Meanwhile, half the pack is walking around like they heard their parents' role-playing last night. I had to console a junior Omega who swore he saw a ghost. That ghost was just the spiritual aftermath of whatever the hell happened in that room. Xavier chuckled. I'm not even mad, I said, throwing my hands up. You're smiling. That's new. You look lighter, happier, like someone who just got properly broken in by an alpha female with a smart mouth and no filter. He didn't respond, just looked back toward the window like he was replaying every second in high definition. I sighed, walking over to pour myself some coffee. Just don't break her heart, okay? I have no intention of breaking anything, Xavier said, finally glancing at me with that damn smirk again. Except maybe the headboard. Again. I nearly spit out my drink. Too soon? He asked innocently. Too graphic. He chuckled and went right back to daydreaming like a man with zero shame and one hell of a night to remember. I took a sip of my coffee, trying to process the fact that Xavier, the stoic and often brooding alpha, was reduced to a love-struck fool by a woman who clearly knew how to keep him on his toes. "You know, I've never seen you like this," I admitted, leaning against the desk. "It's different." Xavier's smirk softened into a genuine smile, something I rarely saw from him. "She's different, Grant. She challenges me, makes me laugh, and—" He paused, looking for the right words. "She makes me feel alive." I raised an eyebrow. "Alive, huh? Well, that's one way to put it. I'd say the entire estate is aware of how alive you both were last night." He laughed, a deep, rich sound that echoed through the office. "Yeah, maybe I got a bit carried away. But it was worth it." I shook my head, a smirk playing on my lips. "Just make sure you keep her happy, okay? The last thing we need is an unhappy Bailey running around the estate, causing chaos." Xavier's expression turned serious, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that reminded me why he was the alpha. "I plan to. She's special, Grant. I don't want to lose her." I clapped him on the shoulder, giving it a firm squeeze. "Then don't screw it up, buddy. We've all seen what happens when you shut down. Let's hope Bailey knows what she's getting into." He nodded, his gaze drifting back to the window, a distant look in his eyes. "She does. Trust me, she does." I finished my coffee, setting the mug down with a clink. "All right, well, I'll leave you to your daydreaming. Just remember, the pack needs you to keep your head in the game. No more headboard incidents during important meetings." Xavier chuckled, finally tearing his gaze away from the window to look at me. "Deal. But I make no promises about what happens behind closed doors." I laughed, shaking my head as I made my way to the door. "Just keep it down next time, will you? Some of us have delicate ears." As I stepped out of the office, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Xavier deserved this, deserved to find someone who could match his intensity and keep him grounded. If Bailey was the one to do it, then I was all for it. Besides, the estate could use a little more chaos and a lot more laughter. And if last night was any indication, Bailey was just the woman to provide it. Bailey's POV. I woke up slowly, groggy and completely tangled in the sheets like I'd just survived a Category 5 storm. My body ached in ways I hadn't anticipated, but not in a bad way, more like I'd been used as the guest of honor at an alpha appreciation ceremony. A very thorough ceremony. The space next to me in the bed was empty. At first, a flicker of disappointment curled in my gut, but then I reminded myself, he was an alpha, of a very large, very important pack. He probably had some early morning alpha-ing to do, like growling at someone, lifting something heavy, or staring at a map while shirtless. Still, a girl could be a little salty. Maybe he should have left a thank you card. Or a "hey, last night was mind-blowing, BRB saving the world" note. I muttered. Pens stirred lazily in my head, sounding smug and sore. "You're welcome, by the way. We didn't die. We conquered." "We conquered, huh?" "Absolutely. Our pelvic floor is now legendary. The ancestors are proud." I snorted and flopped onto my back. "So, what now? We pretend last night didn't happen? Do we have to do the awkward morning after dance?" "Nope. We mark him and claim the throne. Or, brunch. Whichever comes first." Dragging myself to the shower, I groaned at the soreness between my thighs. He really wasn't joking about not being gentle. That wasn't sex. That was spiritual warfare. The hot water helped ease the ache, but did nothing to cool Pen's commentary. Also, if he ever cooks shirtless, I cannot promise I won't hump a leg. "Yours. His. The table. Okay, perv wolf. Let's try and not get banned from the estate." After dressing in something casual, white t-shirt and gray sweatpants, cute enough to scream, still desirable but emotionally unavailable, I headed for the kitchen. The hallway was quiet except for a faint giggle up ahead. 2 female omegas rounded the corner. They were whispering and laughing, and when they saw me, their eyes lit up. "Oh my goddess," one whispered, elbowing the other. "That's her," the other said, a little too loud. I offered a polite, confused smile. "Morning." "Good morning," they chimed together, eyes twinkling like they were watching the star of their favorite telenovela. "We were just saying. If last night is any indication," the bolder one said, "there'll be pups in no time." Her friend clapped her hands. "Lots of pups." My entire face caught fire. I power-walked the rest of the hallway like I was escaping a crime scene. Pen was practically in tears. "Our legacy is legend. We are the Howl herd, round the pack. I am never showing my face in public again. You're going to need a crown. And a sturdy chair." When I made it to the kitchen, Grant was sitting at the island with his ever-present tablet and a face that screamed, "I know what you did." "Good morning, Bailey," he said sweetly. "Sleep well." I squinted at him. "Is this a trap?" "Nope. Just genuinely asking. You look radiant." "I look like someone who wrestled a grizzly bear and lost." He smirked. "Well, from what I heard, it was more of a draw." I groaned and grabbed a mug, pouring myself some much-needed coffee. "Please tell me you're not here to psychoanalyze me after my walk of pride." "Not at all," he said. "I'm here to offer you a tour of the grounds." I blinked. "Wait, like an actual tour? Of this vast wolfy kingdom?" "Yes." The alpha suggested it would be a good opportunity for you to get more comfortable. And to meet some of the pack members who haven't already heard you screaming his name through the vents. I nearly choked on my coffee. Grant didn't flinch, just smiled wider. "I hate everyone," I muttered. "But they love us," Penn purred. I narrowed my eyes at Grant. "Fine. Let's tour the Empire. But if anyone bows or asks when the royal pups are due, I'm shifting and hiding in a tree." Duly noted. And just like that, I was off to see the pack's version of Disneyland, minus the rides, plus a hell of a lot more howling. Grant's POV, I figured a calm tour of the estate would be a good distraction. Bailey and I toured through the pack grounds, she with a latte in hand. Something low-key that I should have known better. We passed the gardens, the greenhouse, the edge of the woods where training sometimes took place. But the moment we arrived at the training ground, Bailey stopped in her tracks like someone just yelled, "Free tacos." Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "Oh, is this the fight pit?" I raised a brow. "This is the training ground." Tomato, tomato. Penn was already howling like someone hit her with an energy drink. "Please let us throw someone. It's been days since we've suplexed a man." Bailey turned to me. "Can I join?" Before I could say absolutely not, she was already sauntering up to Kayla, the head warrior, with the confidence of someone who once bench-pressed their ex just to prove a point. "You want to spar?" she asked, assessing Bailey with a warrior's gaze. Bailey grinned. "I mean, if your warriors can handle getting beat up by a woman in designer sneakers and sunglasses, then yeah. Let's dance." Kayla smirked and called over two of her top fighters. "Let's see what you've got, city girl." Bailey looked them over like they were a brunch menu. "You sure these aren't trainees? Or decorative?" "Bailey," I warned, already rubbing my temples. "Please don't break the pack's morale." She turned and winked. "No promises." Then turned to the warriors. "Try not to bleed on me," she said to the first warrior. This outfit was not made for stains. The fight started. And then it was over. Two warriors flat on their backs. 10 seconds into the sparring match, and both warriors were kissing the dirt. Bailey hadn't even taken off her sunglasses. As soon as they squared off, I mind-linked Xavier. "Grant, you might want to head to the training grounds. Your mate is casually humiliating the entire defense force." He didn't reply with words, just that sharp burst of energy I always felt when he was on his way. Meanwhile, Bailey stepped into the ring with the confidence of someone who had once roundhouse kicked an instructor for giving her a B+. I clapped that I wasn't even pretending to hide the smirk. Xavier arrived just as the second guy hit the dirt. He stepped beside me, arms crossed. "She's impressive," he said. "She's terrifying," I corrected. Bailey glanced over at Kayla. "That was cute. But were those your best? Or just the opening act?" Kayla's brows rose. "You want more?" Bailey stretched her arms over her head like she was warming up for yoga, not gladiator combat. "If I wanted light cardio, I'd go jogging. I want a challenge." Kayla looked amused and a little insulted. She whistled, summoning 5 more warriors. Penn was absolutely vibrating. "Yes. Release the wolves. Let them fall beneath our superior thighs." Bailey cracked her neck. "Bring it, boys. But no hitting the face. I still have to look cute when I gloat later." The sparring started. 5 warriors moved in, and Bailey moved like liquid steel, fast, efficient, brutal. One guy flew over her shoulder. Another tripped over his own feet. She didn't shift, she didn't growl, just raw, practiced skill. She egos. Even Xavier's eyes widened as one guy went flying over her shoulder and landed with a very satisfying thud. By the time the last warrior hit the ground, Bailey stood in the center of the ring, hands on hips, not even winded. Kayla approached her, nodding with respect. "You're damn good. Ever thought about joining my elite brigade?" Bailey smirked. "Do I get a jacket?" Kayla blinked. "What? I mean, if I'm going to join an elite murder squad, I want at least a bomber jacket or something embroidered. Maybe a motto. Like, we fight dirty but look good doing it." I shook my head, Xavier just laughed. Loudly. May the moon goddess help us all, I said. She's going to run this place. Xavier replied without looking away. Let her. Xavier's POV. I've seen battles that I've trained warriors since they were pups. I've watched seasoned fighters tear through opponents with nothing but fong and fury. But none of that, not a single second, prepared me for Bailey in the sparring ring. She wasn't just fighting. She was performing a masterpiece of destruction with sass. Watching her throw men twice her size with nothing but leverage and attitude was alarming and arousing. So much arousing. Asher was panting in the back of my mind like a wolf in heat. Maid is magnificent. Must touch. Must mark. Must do unspeakable things to her. Focus, I growled back, adjusting my stance beside Grant, who was openly enjoying the spectacle. She's a weaponized hurricane with jokes, he said. He wasn't wrong. She was built like temptation and moved like chaos in cute sneakers. Her every movement was a symphony of power and grace, each strike precise and each dodge fluid. She was a vision of raw, unfiltered strength, and it was intoxicating. Then came the part where she asked if Kayla's elite warriors were junior trainees. I nearly choked on air. Bailey stood there, owning the field like she'd been born to command it. Her body gleamed in the sun, her curls bouncing with each pivot, her smirk absolutely criminal. If she had declared herself alpha right then, half the pack might have lined up to follow. I heard a few of the younger warriors whisper among themselves, clearly trying to figure out who the hell she was. Grant cleared his throat and said calmly, She's Xavier's guest. Visiting from another pack. It was vague, technically true, and completely unhelpful in quelling their curiosity. Asher whined. Claim her now. Before someone else does. I couldn't look away. I didn't even pretend to. She was strength wrapped in laughter, dominance cloaked in charm. And despite everything I'd ever told myself about not needing a Luna, about staying detached, this woman had me completely undone. I wanted to drag her into my arms and kiss her until the world forgot how to breathe. But instead I stepped forward and said calmly, Bailey, walk with me. She blinked, then nodded. The warriors cleared the way as we left the training ground. Her posture shifted ever so slightly, shoulders tense, back straight. I sensed she thought she was in trouble. I could see her and Penn having a frantic conversation in her head. I could see it on her face, and in her eyes, they glowed a ring of amber. It amused me to think my mate was worried she had overstepped, embarrassed me somehow. She had no idea. Once in my office, I closed the door behind her. She turned to face me, already defensive. Listen, if breaking 2 ribs and a training dummy counts as misconduct, I'm willing to reimburse the pack for damages. I stepped closer. You think you're in trouble? Bailey raised her brow. You asked me to your office with your, I'm about to alpha someone voice. What was I supposed to think? I shook my head. Bailey, I'm proud of you. That stopped her cold. What? You're remarkable. The way you fought. The way you carried yourself. It's unlike anything I've seen. You weren't just sparring, you were commanding. Her lips parted slightly, and then I smelled it, her arousal. Sharp, hot, unfiltered. She was trying to hide it, but there it was. And suddenly I wasn't just impressed. I was starving. Without breaking eye contact, I stepped forward, reached for her hips, and guided her gently to the edge of my desk. You drive me insane, I said, voice low. She swallowed hard. I'm starting to pick up on that. Her joggers were soft under my fingers. I slid them down, slow, deliberate. Her breath caught. You wore these to fight. I murmured. I wore them to win, she said, half challenging, half breathless. I grinned. Then let me show you what you've earned. I knelt before her, my hands gripping her thighs as I leaned in, inhaling her scent. She was intoxicating, a mix of sweat and something uniquely her. I could feel her trembling slightly, anticipation building. I looked up at her, our eyes locking, and I saw the desire burning in her gaze. I started slow, teasing her with soft kisses on her inner thighs, feeling her muscles tense and relax under my touch. She let out a soft moan, her hands finding their way into my hair, urging me on. I could feel her heat, her wetness, and it drove me wild. I trailed kisses higher, my tongue darting out to taste her, and she bucked against me, a gasp escaping her lips. I took my time, exploring every inch of her, learning her responses, her likes, her needs. Her moans filled the room, a symphony of pleasure that spurred me on. I could feel her getting closer, her body tensing, her breaths coming in short gasps. Xavier, she moaned, her voice a desperate plea. Please. I can't hold on much longer. I obliged, increasing the pressure, the speed, my tongue and fingers working in tandem to drive her wild. And when she came, it was with a force that left her shaking, her back arching off the desk, a cry of pleasure tearing from her throat. I could feel her pulsing around my fingers, her body convulsing with the intensity of her orgasm. I stood up, my body pressing against hers, my mouth finding hers in a hungry kiss. She could taste herself on me, and it only seemed to fuel her desire. Her legs wrapped around my waist, pulling me closer, and I could feel her, hot and ready, against me. "You feel so good," she moaned, her nails digging into my back. "So hard. So big." I grinned against her mouth. "And you're so wet. So tight." I positioned myself at her entrance, teasing her with the tip, feeling her squirm against my chest. "Tell me you want this," I said, my voice a low growl. "Yes," she hissed. "Yes. I want you. All of you." And with that, I sheathed myself inside her, inch by inch, feeling her stretch to accommodate me. She was so tight, so hot, so perfect. I started to move, my hips thrusting against hers, my body taking over, driving us both to the edge of sanity. The room filled with the sounds of our pleasure, raw and uninhibited. Our bodies slapped together, the desk creaking beneath us, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. I could feel every inch of her walls clenching around me, urging me on. "Harder," she begged. "Don't hold back." And I didn't doubt. I gave her everything I had, my body slamming into hers, my hands gripping her hips, holding her in place as I pounded into her. She met me thrust for thrust, her body moving with mine in a dance as old as time. "Xavier," she cried out, her body convulsing as another orgasm tore through her. "I'm coming. Damn, I'm coming." Her words sent me over the edge, my own release tearing through me with a force that left me seeing stars. I collapsed on top of her, our bodies slick with sweat, our hearts pounding in sync. We stayed like that for a while, our breaths slowly returning to normal, our bodies cooling. Eventually, I lifted her off the corner of the desk, pulling her into my embrace. She rested her head on my chest, her fingers tracing idle patterns on my skin. "That was incredible," she said, her voice soft, sated. I pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "You're incredible." She looked up at me, a smirk playing on her lips. "You know, I've never been one for office romance. But I think I could get used to this." I chuckled, pulling her closer. "Good. Because I plan on making this a regular occurrence." And with that I knew Bailey was mine. And I was never letting her go. Let the whole estate hear it if they had to. Bailey's POV. Later that day, Grant decided to spring a surprise on me like it was my birthday or something. He introduced me to a new Omega, tiny, bright-eyed, with the kind of energy that screamed, "I bake cookies and cry over animal rescue videos." "This is Nessa," Grant said. "She's going to be your personal servant." I blinked. "Personal what now?" Nessa curtsied. Actually curtsied. "It's an honor, Miss Bailey. I've heard all about your victory at the training grounds. You were incredible." I glanced at Grant like he'd lost his damn mind. "Yeah, no offense to sweet smiles here, but I don't need a servant. I know how to brush my own hair, make my own food, and if I drop something, I just pick it up." "Wild, I know." Grant gave me a very patient beta look. "It's not negotiable. Xavier requested it personally." Of course he did. Big alpha energy strikes again. I sighed dramatically. "Fine. But if she starts folding my underwear into swans, I'm filing a protest." Nessa giggled and looped her arm around mine like we were instant besties. "Don't worry. I'll make them into butterflies instead. Kill me." A few hours later, Grant delivered more exciting news. "There's a gala tomorrow night. Regional alphas, betas, the whole lot. Xavier wants you to attend." "Does he also want me to juggle flaming swords and recite war poetry?" I muttered. He ignored me and waved in Nessa, who came carrying a garment bag with the reverence of someone handling holy relics. "Iprazin. Your dress." She unzipped the bag like she was unveiling the Hope Diamond. Out came a slinky silver number, encrusted with enough tiny diamonds to blind a small village. It shimmered like moonlight had been trapped in fabric. Also, it had a back so low, it barely qualified as clothing. I gawked. "Where's the rest of it? Did someone forget the other half in shipping?" Nessa clapped her hands. "Isn't it perfect? Xavier chose it for you." "Oh, he did he?" I said, already plotting revenge. "Let me guess, he also wants my neck exposed so he can slobber on it in public?" Nessa, without a hint of shame, beamed. "Exactly. He said he loves kissing your neck." Pen purred in my mind. "He also loves grabbing our ass. Let's not pretend we didn't enjoy that." I groaned. We are one mildly scented lotion away from becoming a cautionary tale. That evening, Nessa helped with makeup and hair, pinning my curls into a messy updo that somehow screamed effortless goddess. I stepped into the dress. It clung to every curve like it had memorized my body. Which, knowing Xavier, it probably had. When I walked into the living room where Xavier was waiting, time literally stopped. His jaw slackened, his eyes darkened. For a full 5 seconds, the alpha of Silver Ridge pack forgot how lungs worked. Penn smirked. He looks like he's about to claim us right here on the rug. Xavier cleared his throat, but his voice came out rough. You look expensive, I offered. Devastating. I gave him a coy smirk. Well, if I trip in this thing, at least I'll go down looking like a glitter bomb. He stepped closer, hand brushing against my exposed back, fingers warm on bare skin. I don't know if I want to show you off. Or lock you in my room for the rest of the night. I leaned in, whispering in his ear. Who says I can't be shown off and locked up afterward? His growl was low and possessive, and if we hadn't been due at a gala, I was pretty sure that dress would have hit the floor faster than Penn could shout, "Take me, you beast." But instead, he offered his arm like a gentleman. Dangerous, delicious. Mine, and I strutted like a woman who knew she had the alpha wrapped around her diamond-studded finger. Xavier's POV the moment Bailey stepped into the living room. I forgot how to function. Breathing, optional. Thinking, impossible. She descended the stairs like sin wrapped in moonlight, every step echoing with confidence and just a hint of wicked promise. The silver dress clung to her body like it had been painted on, glittering with every sway of her hips. That low back, that exposed neck? She was a vision I had no business staring at, but I did anyway. Asher rumbled in my head, completely unhelpful. Mine. Take her. Claim her. Lick every inch. I barely choked out. You look. She raised an eyebrow. Expensive. Devastating. And she was every inch of her. I offered my arm, and to my surprise and secret delight, she took it with a smirk like she already knew how wrecked I was inside. In the back seat of the Escalade, the driver quietly closed the divider. Smart man. Bailey was already fiddling with the hem of her dress. So, is this thing going to be one of those stuffy alpha snooze fests where everyone compares territory size and growls over hors d'oeuvres? I smiled. Something like that. She snorted. Can't wait. I reached out and took her hand. She stiffened slightly, surprised, but didn't pull away. In fact, her thumb began to trace slow circles against my palm. My brothers will be there, I said. I thought you should know. Oh, she said. Please tell me one of them's not a judgmental twit with a superiority complex. I can only handle so many alphas in one room. One is an alpha of the neighboring territory. The other is his beta. She looked at me sideways. So, you're the favorite. I'm the youngest, I said. She shrugged. Still counts. Her hand stayed in mine for the rest of the ride. Her scent was like spiced honey, soft, arousing, intoxicating. My wolf howled beneath the surface, demanding more. But for now I stayed quiet, steady. The gala hadn't even begun, and I was already dangerously close to losing control. Bailey sat beside me, radiant and smart-mouthed, like she owned the damn night already. Bailey's POV the gala looked like a scene pulled straight out of a billionaire fantasy novel. The grand ballroom stretched beneath a vaulted ceiling, painted with a mural of wolves running beneath a star-filled sky. Crystal chandeliers sparkled like captured starlight, casting a soft golden glow over the space. Each table was a masterpiece. Cascading centerpieces of white roses and black calla lilies, silver candelabras burning low with flickering flames, and nameplates etched in gold foil. Live classical music floated through the air, strings and piano with a hint of something ancient and wild layered beneath it. Waiters in black-on-black uniforms glided silently from table to table offering trays of champagne flutes, and hors d'oeuvres so tiny and decorative, I honestly couldn't tell if they were food or art. Everyone looked like they'd stepped out of a high-end fashion catalog. Men in sleek tailored suits and women in gowns that cost more than my student loans. Even the security wolves standing in discreet corners had the posture of supermodels. And there I was, wearing a dress that could double as a disco ball and barely covered my dignity. Xavier was glued to my side, towering and intimidating in his charcoal black tux. His hand rested on my lower back, his favorite real estate, apparently, and every now and then, his fingers would sneak slightly lower. Rude, tempting, dangerous, I leaned toward him and whispered, so, hypothetically, if people ask who I am, what do I say? Just some girl you picked up at Wolf Mart. Doesn't sound very classy. Without hesitation, he replied, you're my mate. My brain short-circuited. Wow. Straight to the point. No warm-up or clever euphemisms. I blinked. Not even a she's with me or we're figuring things out. No, he said simply. You're mine. Pen was practically swooning. Say it again. Maybe louder. Preferably while shirtless. I gave Xavier a deadpan look. Cool. Casual. Totally not going to make things weird. We strolled through the gala like we owned the place, shaking hands with alphas and betas from every direction. So many men bowed their heads slightly to Xavier, and every woman gave me side eyes that said, "Who is this sparkle-wrapped mystery?" I smiled sweetly and resisted the urge to curtsy. It was surreal. The way people deferred to Xavier, the way the room subtly shifted to acknowledge his presence. And now, mine. The conversations buzzed around us in murmured reverence and veiled curiosity. I caught snippets of things like Silver Ridge Pack, Fated Mate, and she's the one who? A server passed us with a tray of stuffed mushrooms that looked like they'd been sculpted by elves. I took one and whispered to Xavier, "This better not be the only thing they're serving, or I swear I will riot in heels." He smirked, clearly amused by my discomfort. Alpha Xavier. A voice said as we approached a group of leaders. I smiled politely. Xavier introduced me without missing a beat. "This is Bailey. My mate." There it was again, that word, that declaration, and every time he said it, my spine tingled and Pen did a cartwheel of joy. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was shifting, that I wasn't just a rogue in a fancy dress anymore, that somehow I'd stepped into a role I never asked for, yet might actually be destined to play. Mate, Luna, partner. Alpha's equal. But right now I was just Bailey, in heels.in diamonds, and turning heads like a storm no one saw coming. Xavier's POV Bailey had already stunned the room, but when my brothers approached, I braced myself. My older brother Damien, Alpha of the Blackstone Ridge Pack, was the first to speak, his voice loud and unapologetic. "Who is this chocolate dessert you're parading around, little brother?" A growl rumbled low in my throat before I could stop it. It wasn't a warning, it was a promise. My eyes narrowed as I stepped slightly in front of Bailey. Damien blinked, raising his hands. "Relax, Xavier." "Damn, I was just asking who she is." I didn't relax. "She's not a dessert," I growled. "She's my fated mate." That shut him up, completely. Both Damien and my middle brother Marcus, his beta, stared at Bailey as if she had grown wings and was juggling flaming wolves. "You serious?" Marcus asked. "Dead," I said, resting a protective hand on the small of her back. Gran arrived just in time to hear that bit, and with him came my parents. My mother, Caroline, always impeccably dressed and elegantly intimidating, perked up. With impeccable timing, my father, Perry Paxton, and my mother, Caroline Paxton, joined the conversation. "Did I hear fated mate?" my mother asked, her tone feather light but razor sharp. Before I could answer, Marcus turned to Bailey. "So, how'd you two meet?" Bailey didn't miss a beat. "Oh, Tinder. Super liked each other. Swiped right into destiny." Grant snorted so hard I thought he might choke. "My parents, Perry and Caroline?" Blinked.in unison. Bailey smiled brightly. Or was it Bumble? Honestly, I blacked out from the pheromones. Damien choked on his champagne. Marcus wheezed. Grant actually doubled over. My father, stoic as ever, cleared his throat. "She's got a sense of humor. And an alpha, no less." My mother blinked again, then her sharp expression softened just slightly. Her eyes studied Bailey in full, and then she smiled genuinely. "She's also stunning. Absolutely radiant. That dress, that skin, that confidence. Xavier, darling, you finally brought home someone who doesn't bore me to tears." Bailey beamed. "That's the nicest thing anyone's said to me since the TSA agent told me my sarcasm was refreshing." Marcus nudged me with a smirk. "So this is what falling in love looks like. I thought the world would crack open or something." Damien added with a chuckle. "And here I thought you were going to live out your days married to the pack bylaws." I rolled my eyes. "I still might if you two keep talking." Grinning, Marcus said, "Of course our baby brother would not only find his mate, but she would be one of the few remaining female alphas too. Why am I not surprised?" Bailey laughed. "Too late. You're stuck with me. And my sarcasm. Forever. Mwahaha." My mother chuckled, clearly entertained. "Oh yes, you'll do wonderfully, my dear." And just like that, she had them all intrigued, if not slightly terrified. "Perfect." I leaned down and whispered into her ear. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" She smirked. "Immensely. I mean, I've already traumatized your whole bloodline. What's not to love?" And as my brothers, my parents, and my beta stood around her looking utterly flabbergasted, I knew exactly what I loved most about her. Everything. Xavier's POV Bailey had stunned the room the moment we walked in, but as we drifted through the glittering crowd of alphas and betas, I felt her tense beneath my hand. Her posture shifted, rigid and alert. I leaned in, lowering my voice. What is it? Is the gala too much? She shook her head subtly. No, it's not that. I don't know. I feel like someone's burning a hole through the back of my skull. My senses sharpened, Asher rising within me, scanning the room for potential threats. Bailey glanced over her shoulder again. Nothing. Then, as if on cue, a woman in a red dress slithered toward us. Form-fitted fabric hugged her curves like it had been spray-painted on. Her heels clicked sharply on the marble floor, announcing every step with confidence and entitlement. Sienna, the councilman's daughter, had been pining after me for years. She was always hovering at the edge of every event, every meeting, every excuse to get close. She made it painfully clear she saw herself as the future Luna of Silver Ridge. I never entertained the idea, never gave her a second glance. But she never took the hint. Tonight, it seemed, she brought out her most obvious weapon, her ego. She stopped beside us and placed her manicured hand lightly on my forearm, pretending Bailey didn't exist. Alpha Xavier, she purred. When will you finally take a queen? The possessiveness that rolled off Bailey was immediate and potent. Her jaw tightened, her spine straightened. Then I felt it. Pen. The she-wolf rose like a thunderstorm, furious and electric. Oh no, she did not just slink her crusty red-dressed self over here and pretend we're invisible. I don't like her. Fuck her. And I especially don't appreciate her breathing near what belongs to us. Touch him again, and I swear I'll gnaw her arm off and serve it as a party snack. Bailey didn't stop her. Instead, she let Penn radiate a flash of their alpha aura, just a taste. The effect was instantaneous. Sienna flinched, her eyes widened with primal instinct. Her breath hitched. Then her knees dipped slightly, and her head dropped low, neck bared in full submission. She didn't even know why, only that she had to. My apologies, she stammered, voice quivering. I didn't mean, I smirked. Ah, I see you've officially met my future Luna. Bailey arched a single brow, cool and in control. Oops, she said. Must have been the pheromones. Sienna backed away like her heels were on fire. A ripple passed through the gala. Heads turned. Whispers started. Bailey's display hadn't just embarrassed Sienna, it had shifted the power dynamic in the room. Some guests were intrigued. Others looked downright frightened. Bailey straightened her shoulders and exhaled smoothly, the aura fading, but I could still feel her pulse pounding. Asher was practically purring with pride. She didn't need claws or teeth. Just presence, and the room knew it. So did I. My Luna had arrived. Bailey's POV the moment I reeled Penn back in, I felt the echo of her snarl still vibrating in my chest. She was pacing tail high, ears perked, still bristling with possessive rage. You let that over-perfumed, over-surgeried paper doll get within breathing range of what's ours? We should have marked him in front of everyone. Like right there on the marble. Pretty sure that would have gotten us kicked out of the gala. I muttered under my breath. Worth it, Penn growled. She thought she had a chance. With our mate. She didn't even look at us. That kind of disrespect should require a formal duel. Claws out. For flying. I rolled my eyes as I sipped champagne to calm myself, fully aware of the dozens of curious eyes now flicking in our direction. The whispers were like tiny daggers in the air, slicing their way through silk and diamonds. People weren't used to seeing a female alpha take command of a room, let alone make a pure-blood council brat bow without lifting a damn finger. Xavier leaned down and whispered in my ear, voice thick with admiration. You just made a bigger statement than any speech I've ever given. I smirked. Good. Maybe now they'll stop sending their red-dressed desperation demons our way. He chuckled, the sound low and warm in my ear. You're more than I ever expected. My heart stuttered. Penn, of course, purred like she'd just been gifted a lifetime supply of steaks. Tell him to say it again, she whispered, delighted. Don't get cocky, I muttered. Too late. Already ordering the crown and picking out the engraving. Luna Bailey, breaker of egos. I shook my head with a laugh, but inside I felt it too. That shift. That electric weight of being seen, really seen. Of knowing that despite everything I swore I didn't want. Being beside Xavier like this? It felt right. Maybe even dangerous. But in the best possible way. Damien's POV watching Bailey unleash her alpha aura with such effortless command sent a ripple through the gala that was impossible to ignore, and it made me damn proud. Not just because of the fear she ignited in Sienna, but because she did it with the type of quiet dominance that can't be faked. It was raw, natural, born of true power. I'd seen Sienna slink around Xavier for years, flaunting herself like some prize on a gold platter. Every elder, every council member, every bored housewife with a title thought she was a shoo-in for Luna. But my brother had never once looked at her like he looked at Bailey now, as if she was the moon itself. Truly a gift from the goddess, I murmured, glancing toward our parents as Bailey stood confidently beside Xavier. My mother's eyes sparkled with quiet understanding. My father nodded once, his expression hard but approving. She is exactly what your brother needs, he said. A partner, not a shadow. I caught the glance between them and Xavier, who hadn't taken his eyes off Bailey since she lowered her aura. There was a softness there I rarely saw in my brother. Reverence, all love. Marcus leaned toward Grant, brows arched. How are they together? Grant chuckled, eyes still fixed on Bailey as she took a sip of champagne with that trademark smirk on her lips. She's a force to be reckoned with, he said. Keeps him on his toes. Challenges him. Makes him better. And she does it all while being sarcastic as hell. I grinned. So, she fits right in. As if she was born for it, Grant replied. The pack didn't know it yet, but their Luna had already claimed her throne. She hadn't needed to ask. She just walked in, took one look at Xavier, and rewrote the entire power structure with a flick of her aura. Xavier accepted it. He looked like he'd finally exhaled after holding his breath for years. Bailey wasn't just our future Luna. She was the Luna. And the rest of the world was about to find out why. Xavier's POV. The ride home in the Escalade was quiet for the first few minutes. Just the hum of the road and Bailey's legs draped over mine like she owned the air between us. Which honestly she did. I looked over at her, watching the street lights flicker across her cheekbones. Her eyes were distant, but there was the faintest hint of smugness tugging at her lips. So, I said, breaking the silence, was that your way of staking a claim tonight? She turned her head slowly, giving me a dry look. Oh, you mean the moment I exorcised that desperate red-dressed demon from your personal space with nothing but my aura? I grinned. Exactly that. She sighed dramatically, tossing her curls. Look, I'm not saying I'm territorial, but after you've fed me gourmet steak, creme brulee, and given me orgasms that realigned my spine, the only womb you're filling is mine. I choked on my own breath, laughing. Bailey. She held up a finger. No. Let me finish. After spoiling me with such delectable dishes and what can only be described as biblical levels of lovemaking, I'd be damned if another set of tits tries to interrupt my divine meal plan. This buffet is closed, reserved seating only. I was howling. Asher was howling. Hell, the whole damn Escalade might have been howling. Damn woman, you're going to be the death of me. I wheezed, wiping tears from my eyes. She smiled sweetly. You're welcome. Now stop looking at me like you're about to pull over and take me right here. I am sore and slightly traumatized by how flexible I apparently still am. I laced my fingers through hers and brought her hand to my lips. I'm still claiming you tonight. Bailey raised an eyebrow. Claim away. Just let me ice my thighs first. She shifted in her seat with a groan and muttered, I swear if I sneeze wrong I might pull something. I leaned in with a smirk. My wolf's saliva heals wounds quickly. I could lick your inner thighs to help soothe the ache. For recovery. Bailey narrowed her eyes. Your idea of soothing involves 0 hands and a whole lot of other body parts. I doubt your tongue would remain on my inner thighs. No comment. Uh-huh. And don't think I didn't catch you marking me with your scent during dessert. You practically growled at the server when he complimented my earrings. That server had shifty eyes. He had a lazy eye, Xavier. Exactly. You never know which direction he was looking. Could have been your earrings, could have been your cleavage. Bailey burst into laughter, clutching her stomach. Fuck. You're nuts. I cannot with you. I leaned over, brushing my lips to her shoulder. You love it. She sighed dramatically, but her grin gave her away. Yeah, I do. Bailey's POV. The moment the gala ended, something shifted in the air between us. It wasn't just the champagne or the stolen glances, it was the magnetism, the gravity, the need. The kind that made your skin hum and your bones ache. Xavier didn't say a word as he took my hand and led me out of the gala hall, his grip firm but gentle, like he was afraid I'd vanish if he let go. When we returned to the estate, neither of us wasted time. The second we crossed the threshold of our bedroom, I turned to face him, and that was all it took. The room was filled with the scent of our arousal, the air thick with anticipation. Xavier maneuvered my body like it was a landscape of desire, my skin flushed, my breaths coming in short, desperate gasps. I could feel the intensity of his need, mirroring my own, and it drove me wild. He cupped my jaw, tilting my face toward his. "Say it," he whispered, his voice raw and desperate. "Mine," I said. "You are mine." He growled, deep and guttural, and crashed his lips into mine. I didn't care how desperate it looked, I was past pretending. My dress slipped off my body like loose wrapping paper on a gift, and I didn't give a single damn where it landed. Xavier's mouth trailed down my neck, nipping and sucking. My skin tingled under his touch, the fire inside me fanned by his every move. When his canines grazed my neck, I froze. My heart thudded in my chest. "Bailey," he murmured, his breath hot against my skin. "May I?" I nodded. I wanted it, I needed it. The bond, the claim, the final seal. His fangs sank into the soft flesh between my neck and shoulder. A rush of sensation exploded through me. Heat. Electricity. A cosmic tether pulling us into a single heartbeat. My eyes fluttered shut as the pain twisted into pleasure. I felt my soul tie itself to his, and Penn practically howled inside me. "Do it," Penn said. "Mark him. He is ours." With a fire building inside me, I flipped us. Xavier laid beneath me, his eyes wide with reverence. I leaned down and bit him hard on the curve of his neck. The instant my teeth pierced his skin, a growl tore from his throat, and he wrapped his arms around me like he never intended to let me go. The bond sealed, mated, bonded, claimed. And then, we moved. He positioned himself between my thighs, his body hovering over mine as he looked into my eyes. Damn those eyes. So intense, they stare straight into my soul. They answer unspoken questions. They captivate, they make me feel like I am the only woman in the world, his world. "Are you ready for this, my love?" he asked, his voice a low, husky growl. I smiled, a wicked, playful glint in my eye. "More than ready, Alpha. Show me what you've got." I can tell he loves it when I call him Alpha. His eyes glow slightly at the calling. He grinned, leaning down to capture my lips in a fierce, passionate kiss. We made love like animals who'd waited lifetimes. His hands explored me with reverence and hunger. My name left his lips like a prayer. Each thrust was a promise, every gasp a sacred vow. The tension shattered, replaced by a deep knowing. This man, this Alpha, was mine. When we collapsed into each other, slick with sweat and tangled in sheets, the room still vibrated with energy. He ran a hand down my side, eyes soft but serious. "Tomorrow, I'll announce it to the pack." I blinked, dazed in our afterglow. "Announce what?" He smiled. "That Bailey Jordan, my fated mate, is to become the Luna of the Silver Ridge pack." I blinked again, this time with emotion. "You really think I'm Luna material?" Penn rolled her eyes inside my head. "Girl, please. You flipped a man twice your size in training and cut a bitch's aura in half with your glare. You are Luna material." I chuckled. "Penn says I'm already Luna material. She's clearly your biggest fan." Xavier leaned in and kissed my marked neck. "Then she's not alone. You're exactly what this pack needs, Bailey." "What I need?" I didn't cry, not right then, but I did smile, one of those soul-deep ones that feels like spring after a long winter. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't just fighting for survival. I was home. And I was loved. Grant's POV. It had been a few days since the gala, and Xavier and I were holed up in his office, surrounded by a mountain of paperwork and upcoming pack events. The usual nonsense, territorial borders, food storage for winter, training schedules. Xavier was flipping through documents with the kind of boredom only an Alpha trapped in admin mode could manage. Then he paused. "Hey, Grant." Xavier looked up, frowning slightly. "Bailey's scent has been different lately." I blinked, already suspicious of where this was going. "Different how?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "Sweeter. Stronger. It's been lingering longer, too. Is that normal? Could it be because she finally claimed me? Or maybe it's from when she released her aura." I sat back slowly, trying to fight the grin tugging at my lips. "You really don't know?" He narrowed his eyes. "Know what?" My smile widened. "A woman's scent sweetens when she's pregnant." Xavier froze. His entire body stiffened like I just slapped him with a divine revelation. "Wait, what?" I said. "No, I heard you," he said, eyes going wide. "You mean she could be pregnant?" I confirmed. There was a long silence. Then Xavier shot to his feet. "Get Dr. Harlow. Now." I couldn't help but laugh. "Relax. She's not going to pop overnight. I'll ask Harlow to do an exam." Xavier sat down again, slowly this time, a stunned look still plastered on his face. Then, a smile broke across his lips. And it didn't stop. Asher was practically purring through the bond. She's carrying my child, Xavier whispered to himself. You don't know that yet, I warned. I will, he said, eyes distant and glowing with hope. And if she is, the council can take their threats and shove them. I never cared about their damn deadlines. So why are you grinning like a lovesick pup? I teased. He looked at me with a quiet awe. Because if she is pregnant, Grant, she's carrying my heir. A pup that's the best of both of us. Strong, fierce, brilliant, sarcastic as hell. I laughed. May the moon goddess help the world if that kid inherits her mouth. Xavier leaned back in his chair, still smiling like he'd just won the lottery and ascended to godhood all in one. I'd be the luckiest alpha alive. Bailey's POV, the sterile scent of antiseptic, did little to calm the stampede of thoughts racing through my head as I lay on the exam table in Dr. Harlow's office. She was doing her usual meticulous work, eyes narrowed in concentration as she reviewed the sonogram monitor. Pen was pacing in circles in the back of my mind like she was preparing for a championship match, full of nervous anticipation. Then Dr. Harlow turned to me, a soft smile spreading across her face. Congratulations, Bailey. You're pregnant. I blinked, silence, and then tears. Not the dramatic soap opera kind. Just a quiet stream that trickled down the sides of my cheeks as I lay there, overwhelmed by something I hadn't let myself admit I wanted. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about being a surrogate. This baby was the result of love, real, explosive, terrifying love. The kind that crept up on you while you were too busy cracking jokes and dodging emotional commitment. Pen howled in delight. He's going to be a father, she whispered, practically vibrating with excitement. And we're going to be mothers. Bailey, do you know what this means? Asher's pups. Our pups. I chuckled through my tears. Calm down, Pen, before you shift out of sheer joy and ruin Dr. Harlow's equipment. Pen was practically wagging a mental tail. I can't. I won't. I refused to be calm. We're having a baby. Dr. Harlow handed me a tissue. I'm guessing you're not upset? Only in the way that I'm now legally and spiritually bound to a man who makes me drool in public, I muttered, dabbing my eyes. But no, not upset. Just grateful. She smiled again. Would you like me to tell Xavier? I sat up quickly, shaking my head. No way. I want to be the one to tell him. This is ours. Not the council's, not the PAC's. Just ours. Dr. Harlow nodded, respect softening her gaze. Of course. Take your time. As I walked out of the clinic, I swear my feet didn't even touch the ground. I floated all the way to Xavier's office, my heart thudding like it had grown an extra beat. Grant and Xavier were inside, voices low and serious. I knocked gently. Xavier looked up, and just like that, he knew. His eyes locked onto mine, and the grin that spread across his face made every hormone in my body do a backflip. Grant glanced between us, smiling knowingly. I'll leave you two alone. He exited, closing the door behind him. Xavier crossed the room in 2 strides and stopped just inches away. It's true, isn't it? I nodded, tears returning with a vengeance. I'm going to be a father, he whispered, all lacing his words. Yes, I breathed. And I'm going to be a very unhinged mother. Xavier cupped my face gently. You're everything I never knew I needed, Bailey. I love you. I love you too, I said, sniffling. But fair warning, I'm going to milk this pregnancy for everything it's worth. Foot rubs, late-night snacks, irrational mood swings, brace yourself. He laughed, kissing me softly. I'll take all of it. Just stay here. With me. Always. I leaned into his chest, listening to his heartbeat thump strong and steady. Always. Xavier's POV. It had been a few months since Bailey told me we were going to have a pup, and I swear each day since then I've woken up more obsessed with her than the day before. Her belly rounded in the most glorious way, and my self-control, already fragile when it came to her, was unraveling faster than a cheap sweater in a wind tunnel. Her scent had always been addictive, but now it was. Sweeter, richer, like warm honey soaked in sin. And don't get me started on the glow. That damn pregnancy glow made her look like she was sculpted by a lusty moon goddess on a particularly horny night. Every morning was a test of will. I'd wake up with her back pressed against my chest, one arm wrapped around her belly and the other tangled in her hair, and Asher practically purring in my head like a smug cat. All I wanted to do was stay there. Just breathe her in, stroke her stomach, whisper to our pup through her skin. But Bailey, being Bailey, wasn't having it. This alpha needs to go earn his keep, she said one morning, nudging me away with a sleepy grin. Me and my belly will still be here when you're done playing king of the werewolves. I growled into her neck. I'm not playing. She snorted. You're wearing a leather watch and sipping imported espresso from a mug that says, World's Most Broody Alpha. Try again. You got me that mug. Exactly. I know you. I chuckled, kissing the curve of her shoulder before reluctantly climbing out of bed. You're lucky I love you. I know, she called after me. Now go be responsible before I drag you back in here, and we both end up calling it a half day. And that was the thing, she could have said the word and I'd cancel every meeting, every elder visit, every patrol briefing. She had that kind of power. Not because she demanded it, but because she was it. My mate.my wild, sarcastic, beautifully glowing pain in the ass goddess. And every time I looked at her belly, I felt like the luckiest damn alpha in the world. Asher, of course, was basking in his own smug glory. I told you she was ours. Look at her. Look at that belly. Our legacy, Xavier. That pup will rule the stars. Or at least sass them into submission, I muttered under my breath. Bailey's POV, I was having a day, okay? The kind of day where everything was baby-sized and adorable, and my bladder was holding me hostage. Nessa and I had gone into town for what I dubbed the Great Baby Haul. We were giggling over teeny booties, matching onesies, and the softest baby blankets I'd ever touched. Dr. Harlow had confirmed we were having a son, and I was already mentally naming him something respectable and not at all ridiculous. Pen was pushing for Blaze. Absolutely not, I muttered as I fingered a sky-blue romper. He's not a flame emoji. Nessa chuckled. What about Xavier Jr.? Hard pass. I want to raise a child, not a baby alpha dictator. After loading up on baby gear, we made a beeline for the ice cream shop, because apparently, my unborn child craved mint chocolate chip like it was his job. We were half a block away, happily chatting, when it happened. A white van.no windows, too quiet. The sliding door yanked open. Hands, rough, unfamiliar, clawed. I barely had time to scream before they grabbed me. I fought, clawed, kicked, bit. Pen was roaring to take over. Then the needle. A sharp sting. Cold fire. Wolf's bane. I remember Nessa's screams. Her voice shattered the air as the world tilted sideways. My knees gave out. The last thing I saw before the world blurred and blackened was the horrified look on her face as the van door slammed shut. Nessa's POV, Alpha Xavier. They took her. I screamed into the mind link. I could barely breathe as the van sped off. Bailey. They took her, they took her. Xavier's POV. The moment Nessa's voice hit my mind, I was already on my feet. My desk toppled behind me as I shifted mid-sprint. Asher surged forward, snarling. Grant burst into the hallway beside me. Get the warriors. She's been taken. Cars roared to life, tires screeched against the pavement, and the pack launched like lightning. Her scent, gods, that sweet scent, was still thick in the air, guiding us like a trail of pure adrenaline. We caught sight of the van at the bend in the mountains. Too fast, too steep. The curve, the crash. It happened in slow motion and all at once. The van veered, skidded, launched over the cliff's edge like it had been pulled by some invisible hand. I yelled for my mate. We didn't wait. Me, Grant, the warriors, we all leapt from the cars and shifted mid-air, for exploding through skin, paws thundering down the mountainside. And then I saw her. Bailey's body, ejected from the van, lay motionless on the forest floor. Blood soaked her dress, her belly. Asher howled in anguish. My world tilted. No, I growled. No! I shifted back before I even touched the ground, tearing through the foliage barefoot, skin scraped raw by branches. Bailey! I fell beside her, cradling her limp form. Her pulse was faint. Her scent was still there, sweet but weak. Too weak. Help is coming, I whispered. Hold on, baby. Please. Don't you dare leave me. Don't you dare leave us. Asher whimpered, curling around my heart like a wounded animal. I pressed my forehead to hers, trembling. We just found each other. The night air filled with the howls of my pack, and the sound of a war that had just begun.